The room was packed with reporters, fighters, and celebrities, all gathered around one boxing ring like it was the center of the world. Cameras were ready, flashes were going off, and the air felt heavy with excitement. Everyone knew they were about to witness something rare. Muhammad Ali stepped into the ring first. Tall, confident, and smiling like he owned the world, Ali bounced lightly on his feet as if the ropes beneath him were music. He raised his gloves and waved to the crowd, soaking in the attention like it was oxygen. People cheered louder, because when Ali walked into a room it didn't matter who else was there. All eyes followed him. Then the noise suddenly shifted, because someone else had entered the building. A man with a calm face, sharp eyes, and a quiet aura that made people instinctively step aside. He didn't arrive with bodyguards. He didn't speak loudly. He didn't try to impress anyone. He simply walked forward with the confidence of someone who didn't need permission. Bruce Lee. The moment he appeared, the crowd whispered like they had just seen a ghost. Some smiled, some looked confused, and some looked nervous. Because everyone knew Bruce Lee wasn't just a movie star. He was a real martial artist. Fast, precise, dangerous. Ali looked across the ring and smirked. He leaned forward, staring at Bruce like a lion staring at a challenger. Then Ali lifted one glove and pointed directly at him. "Bruce Lee," Ali called out, his voice echoing through the room. The crowd laughed, thinking it was just Ali being Ali. But Ali wasn't joking. "Come in this ring," he said. "Let's see if that kung fu stuff works against a real fighter." The laughter faded. Bruce Lee didn't react like an angry man. He didn't argue. He didn't look insulted. He simply smiled slightly and walked toward the ring, his footsteps quiet but confident. People began pulling out cameras. Some even stood on chairs to get a better view. Ali bounced again, rolling his shoulders. Bruce stepped closer, looking up at the taller champion. Ali grinned. "You sure you want to do this?" Bruce Lee's eyes didn't blink. He calmly replied, "I don't need to be sure. I only need to be ready." That one sentence made the entire room go silent, because in that moment, everyone realized this wasn't a joke anymore. And when the bell finally rang, what happened next shocked everyone watching. The event wasn't public. No tickets. No big announcements. It was a private training session inside a well-known gym in Los Angeles, where champions and celebrities sometimes came to watch sparring matches. Only a few reporters were allowed in, and even they were warned not to cause chaos. But chaos was already in the air, because Muhammad Ali was there. Ali moved around the ring like he was performing for an audience, laughing, cracking jokes, and throwing light punches into the air. His confidence wasn't fake. It was the kind that came from being undefeated in his mind. He looked at the crowd and shouted, "Y'all ready to see greatness?" Everyone cheered. Then he turned toward Bruce Lee, who stood quietly near the corner, stretching his arms and rolling his shoulders like a man preparing for something serious. Bruce didn't talk much. He didn't try to steal attention. He simply watched Ali's movements carefully, like he was studying a puzzle. Ali smirked and walked closer. "So you're the famous Bruce Lee?" Ali asked loudly. Bruce nodded politely. "Yes." Ali looked him up and down, then laughed. "Man, you look like you weigh 100 pounds soaking wet." Some people chuckled. Bruce didn't react. He only smiled slightly. Ali continued. "People say you're fast. People say you're dangerous. But speed ain't nothing when a real punch lands." Bruce's voice stayed calm. "A real punch only lands if it can find me." That answer made a few people exchange looks. Ali stopped smiling for a second. Then he raised his gloves and said, "All right then. Let's make it simple. 1 round. No excuses." Bruce stepped forward. He didn't put on gloves. He didn't look nervous. He just climbed into the ring with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing to prove. And when both legends stood face to face, the room held its breath. The moment Bruce Lee stepped into the ring, the energy in the gym changed completely. The crowd that had been laughing just seconds ago suddenly went quiet. Even the reporters stopped whispering. Everyone could feel it. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was two legends standing inches apart, both representing different worlds. Muhammad Ali bounced lightly on his feet, hands up, shoulders relaxed, moving like a man who had spent his entire life inside a ring. His eyes stayed locked on Bruce, but there was still a playful arrogance on his face, like he believed this was already won. Bruce Lee stood still at first. His stance was different. Lower, balanced, calm. His hands weren't raised like a boxer's guard, but his body looked ready to explode at any second. He didn't look tense. He looked controlled. Ali circled him slowly, smiling. "You sure you don't want gloves?" Ali teased. Bruce answered softly, "I'm fine." That confidence made some people nervous. Ali suddenly snapped a quick jab, not full power, but fast, enough to test him. Bruce moved his head slightly and the punch missed. The crowd reacted with a small gasp. Ali laughed. "Okay, you got reflexes." He threw another jab, quicker this time. Again, Bruce avoided it, not by stepping back, but by shifting his body like water sliding away from a rock. His movement was so smooth it didn't even look real. Ali's smile faded just a little. He threw a third jab, harder. Bruce lifted his arm and tapped it aside, barely touching it, like he didn't want to waste energy. It wasn't a block, it was a redirection. The sound of the glove-cutting air echoed in the gym. Ali stepped back and looked at Bruce with a new expression, still confident, but now more focused. "You fast," Ali admitted. "But you ever been hit by a heavyweight?" Bruce didn't respond. Ali rushed forward and fired a combination, jab, jab, hook. The first jab missed, the second jab missed. The hook came in like a whip, but Bruce Lee didn't panic. He leaned back by inches, the glove passing so close that the wind from it brushed his cheek. Some people in the crowd actually flinched, as if they were the ones being punched. Ali stopped and stared, because he knew something now. Bruce wasn't lucky. Bruce was calculating. Ali began bouncing again, faster, circling wider, trying to trap him near the ropes. He wanted to control the ring like he always did. But Bruce kept adjusting his position before Ali could corner him. Then Bruce spoke. His voice was calm, almost polite. "You're fast, but you show your rhythm." Ali's eyebrows lifted. "My rhythm?" Bruce nodded slightly. "You repeat patterns." That hit Ali's pride. Ali stepped in and threw a straight punch, sharper than before, not playful anymore. The glove shot forward like a bullet. But Bruce did something shocking. Instead of backing away, he stepped inside the punch. The crowd gasped loudly, because stepping forward into a heavyweight's punch was suicide. But Bruce did it perfectly. Ali's fist passed just past his shoulder, and suddenly Bruce was right there, inside Ali's range, close, enough to touch his chest. Ali froze for half a second, because no one ever got that close. Bruce raised his hand. Not a punch, just two fingers pointing at Ali's ribs, stopping inches away. His eyes stayed calm. "If this was real," Bruce said quietly, "you'd be hurt right now." Ali's mouth opened slightly. The entire gym went silent, because in that moment, everyone realized Muhammad Ali wasn't controlling the fight anymore. Bruce Lee was. Ali took a slow step back. For the first time in the entire session, his face wasn't smiling. The playful energy that had been surrounding him earlier started fading. It wasn't fear. Muhammad Ali wasn't the type of man who feared anyone, but it was something else. It was surprise. The crowd around the ring didn't even breathe properly. A few people had their hands over their mouths. Some reporters forgot to write. The only sound in the gym was the squeak of Ali's shoes and the faint rustle of people shifting in shock. Bruce Lee lowered his hand and returned to his stance like nothing had happened. Calm, silent, controlled. Ali shook his head slightly and forced a laugh. All right, Ali said loudly, trying to bring the energy back. "You got some moves," but his eyes betrayed him. He wasn't joking anymore. Ali raised his gloves again and began circling. This time he moved slower, more careful, watching Bruce's feet, watching his shoulders, watching every tiny movement. Bruce didn't chase him. He didn't rush. He simply waited, like a predator that didn't need to prove it was dangerous. Ali suddenly threw a jab again, but now it was a trap. A fake jab meant to make Bruce move. Then Ali followed with a sharp right hand faster than before. The punch came in hard. The crowd gasped, but Bruce's body shifted at the last moment, sliding away so smoothly that the punch missed by inches. Ali's glove cut through air so close to Bruce's face that some people swore it touched him. It didn't. Ali stepped forward, irritated. "You're slippery," he muttered. Then Ali did what made him the greatest, and he started using his mouth. He began talking, trying to distract. "Bruce, you know what they call me?" Ali said. "The greatest. The king of the ring." Bruce didn't respond. Ali continued, louder. "I float like a butterfly." But before Ali could finish his famous line, Bruce moved. It wasn't a punch. It wasn't a kick. It was a sudden step forward, so fast that the audience didn't even understand how he crossed the distance. 1 second he was outside range, the next second he was right in front of Ali. Ali instinctively leaned back, and Bruce tapped Ali's shoulder with 2 fingers. A simple touch, but it was like a warning shot. Ali blinked, shocked. The crowd erupted with whispers. "Did you see that?" That was too fast. Ali's jaw tightened. He didn't like being touched, especially not in front of a crowd. Ali came forward again, throwing a quick jab to push Bruce away. But Bruce didn't move back this time. He slapped the jab aside and stepped closer again, forcing Ali to retreat. The sire. Audience was stunned, because the world had always seen Muhammad Ali as the man who made others back up. But now, Ali was the one moving backward. Ali's breathing got heavier. He wasn't tired, but he was thinking too much. And for a fighter like Ali, thinking too much could be dangerous. Ali suddenly rushed forward with a full combination. Jab, cross hook, another hook. The punches came faster and harder, like Ali had decided to remind everyone why he was champion. The crowd leaned in. This was real now. Bruce Lee didn't block like a boxer. He didn't cover up and absorb. Instead, he moved like a shadow. Each punch missed by inches. He ducked under one, slipped past another, spun slightly to the side, and then Bruce stopped moving. Ali's final punch flew forward, and Bruce caught the wrist. Not with strength, with timing. Ali's arm froze in place, trapped for a second. The crowd gasped loudly. Ali tried pulling back, but Bruce's grip was firm. Bruce leaned in close and whispered something so quietly that only Ali could hear it. Ali's eyes widened. He stepped back instantly. "What did he say?" People whispered. The tension was so thick it felt like the gym itself was holding its breath. Bruce raised his leg slowly, not like a wild fighter, like a man showing control. Then he launched a kick, fast as lightning. It wasn't aimed to hurt. It stopped inches away from Ali's jaw, so close that the air from it made Ali's skin ripple. Ali froze. His gloves didn't move. His eyes didn't blink, because he hadn't seen it coming. The kick hovered for a split second, then Bruce pulled it back calmly. The crowd exploded. People stood up shouting. Reporters rushed forward. Even the trainers looked shocked. Ali slowly lowered his gloves, and in that moment, everyone realized something terrifying. Bruce Lee wasn't trying to win. He was trying to show that he could end it anytime he wanted. And Ali, for the first time in his life, had met someone who didn't fear him. The gym was no longer loud, it was electric. After that kick stopped inches from Muhammad Ali's face, the entire crowd froze as if time had paused. Nobody clapped, nobody laughed. Even the reporters didn't know what to write. They just stared, eyes wide, mouths half open, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Ali stood still. His gloves were still raised, but his confidence had shifted. The man who always danced, joked, and talked like he owned the ring was now silent. Bruce Lee stepped back calmly, as if he had done nothing special. He lowered his leg, relaxed his shoulders, and returned to his stance like a teacher who had just demonstrated a lesson. Ali blinked, then he slowly exhaled. For a second it looked like he was about to get angry. The crowd could feel it. People leaned back, expecting Ali to explode, to throw a heavy punch to prove he was still the king. But instead, Ali started smiling. Not a mocking smile, not a proud smile, a genuine smile. He shook his head and laughed, quietly. "Man," Ali said, stepping back. "You almost took my face off." The crowd released a nervous breath, but the tension stayed. Bruce's expression didn't change. "I didn't want to hurt you," he said calmly. "I wanted to show you distance." Ali stared at him. Then Ali nodded slowly, like he had just understood something deep. Because Muhammad Ali had fought the hardest men in boxing. He had faced killers in the ring, he had survived wars of fists. But what Bruce Lee just showed him wasn't power. It was control. Ali bounced again, but not with arrogance now. His movement was lighter, more cautious. His eyes were sharper. The joking was gone. He stepped forward and threw a jab, quick and clean. Bruce leaned away. Ali threw another. Bruce stepped to the side. Ali suddenly threw a hook, faster than before. Bruce ducked under it and moved inside again. And in that moment, Ali felt it. Bruce's hand was near his ribs. Not punching, just hovering, like a reminder, like a warning. Ali quickly stepped away again. The crowd whispered louder. "Bruce is too fast. How is Ali missing everything? This doesn't look real." Ali stopped and raised his glove. "Hold on," he said. Bruce stopped immediately. Ali walked closer and stared directly into Bruce Lee's eyes. The entire gym fell silent again. Then Ali said something nobody expected. "You know, if I hit you once, it's over." Bruce nodded. "Yes." Ali continued. "But if you hit me first..." He paused. "I might never see it coming." Bruce didn't smile. He didn't brag. He simply replied, "That's why timing matters more than strength." Those words hit the room like thunder. Because it wasn't trash talk. It was truth. Ali lowered his gloves completely. Then he stepped forward and did something that shocked the crowd even more than the kick. He extended his hand. Bruce looked at it for a second, then shook it. The crowd erupted instantly. People started clapping, shouting, standing up. Some trainers nodded with respect. Even the reporters rushed to capture the moment. Ali laughed loudly now, pointing at Bruce. "This man is different," Ali shouted. "Y'all better stop thinking he's just a movie star." Bruce bowed his head slightly, respectful. Ali continued, "I've fought champions, but this man moves like lightning." Then Ali looked at Bruce and said something that made everyone go quiet again. "If we ever fought for real, it wouldn't be boxing anymore." Bruce nodded once. "And if it wasn't boxing," Bruce said calmly, "it wouldn't be about size anymore." Ali stared at him for a moment, then laughed again. But this time it wasn't ego, it was respect. And everyone inside that gym realized they weren't watching a fight. They were watching two legends recognize each other. The ring felt different now. It wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was almost like a classroom. And both men had just taught the world something without even throwing a real punch. Muhammad Ali stood near the center of the ring, gloves lowered, breathing steady. Bruce Lee stood across from him, calm as ever, eyes focused but relaxed. The crowd kept clapping, but slowly the noise began to fade. Not because people lost interest, but because they realized they had witnessed something too serious to treat like entertainment. Ali wiped sweat from his forehead and walked toward Bruce, circling him like he was still trying to understand what he had just seen. "You know what's crazy," Ali said, half laughing. "You ain't even breathing hard." Bruce smiled slightly. "I trained to control my breath. Without control, power means nothing." Ali nodded slowly, then looked at the trainers outside the ring. "Y'all hear that?" Ali said. "This man talking like a philosopher." Some people laughed, but it wasn't mocking laughter. It was the kind of laughter you make when you're impressed but don't want to admit it too loudly. Ali stepped closer again, lowering his voice. "Tell me the truth," Ali asked. "How you move like that?" Bruce's eyes stayed calm. "Because I don't wait for the punch. I read the intention before it happens." That sentence made Ali pause. Even Ali, the greatest talker in sports, had no reply for a moment. Then, he nodded. "Man, that's deep," Ali muttered. Bruce didn't act proud. He didn't act like he had won anything. He simply shrugged lightly as if he was explaining something normal. Outside the ring, the reporters were already writing headlines in their heads. They whispered to each other, trying to decide what was more shocking. Ali challenging Bruce, or Ali respecting Bruce. A trainer from the side called out, "One more round?" The crowd instantly cheered again, but Ali raised his hand. "No," Ali said firmly. That answer stunned people more than any punch, because Muhammad Ali never backed away from attention. He never walked away from a challenge, but this time he wasn't walking away out of fear. He was walking away out of wisdom. Ali pointed at Bruce. "I ain't gonna lie," Ali said loudly so everyone could hear. "If this was a real fight, I might hit him once," the crowd murmured. Ali continued. "But he might hit me first, and I might not even see it." That line hit the room hard. A few people nodded. Some looked shocked. Some looked excited, like they had just heard the truth from the king himself. Bruce Lee stepped forward and bowed his head respectfully. "I respect you, Muhammad," Bruce said. "You are the greatest boxer. Your footwork is art." Ali smiled. "And you?" Ali replied, "You're like a ghost. I can't even touch you." The crowd laughed, but it was filled with admiration. Ali then turned to the reporters. "Listen," Ali said. "People always want to argue. Boxing versus kung fu, punches versus kicks." He paused. "But y'all gotta understand something." Ali looked at Bruce again. "This man is a fighter, a real one." Bruce's face stayed calm, but his eyes showed something rare, appreciation, because Bruce Lee wasn't chasing fame. He wasn't chasing approval. He cared about one thing: respect between warriors. Ali walked toward the ropes, then stopped and turned around one last time. He raised Bruce's hand like a referee would. The crowd erupted again, louder than before. Some people stood on chairs. Others shouted Bruce's name. Ali laughed. Then he looked at Bruce and said quietly, almost like a private confession, "You know what scares me?" Bruce looked at him. Ali smirked. "I'm used to fighting men who want to hurt me. But you fight like you already know the ending." Bruce answered calmly, "I don't fight people, Muhammad. I fight the moment." Ali stared at him for a second, then shook his head and smiled. "Man, you different." And as both legends stepped out of the ring, the crowd understood one thing clearly. This wasn't a victory. This was history. The ring was empty now, but the energy it had held didn't leave. It lingered like electricity in the air. Sweat still glistened on Muhammad Ali's forehead. Bruce Lee's calm expression betrayed nothing, but even the quietest corners of the gym seemed charged. Everyone who had been there felt it. They hadn't just witnessed a sparring session. They had witnessed something bigger: respect, humility, and mastery of one's craft. Ali sat down on the ropes for a moment, wiping his face with a towel. He shook his head slowly, smiling. "Man, you don't fight like anybody I've ever faced," Ali said quietly, almost to himself. "You move like a storm that nobody sees coming." Bruce Lee simply nodded, his eyes calm, yet observant. "What people don't get," Bruce said softly, "is that strength alone isn't what makes a fighter. Timing, awareness, respect. That's the true power." Ali looked at him, a thoughtful smile spreading across his face. For the first time, he wasn't the showman in the ring. He was a student. "Respect," Ali said, repeating the word as if tasting it for the first time in this context. "I've knocked out champions, I've dodged legends, but you make me feel careful, and careful is respect." The crowd, still buzzing, began whispering again. People exchanged glances, some shaking their heads in disbelief. They hadn't just seen Muhammad Ali get challenged. They had seen him recognize greatness in someone else, and that recognition, that humility, was louder than any punch. Bruce, Lee walked slowly toward the exit. He didn't need applause. He didn't need recognition. His lesson was done. And in his wake, he left the strongest teaching possible. Power without respect is empty, but respect with power is unforgettable, lying. Stood and followed, smiling. He raised his hand one last time, signaling to the crowd and the reporters, "This man isn't just fast. He's focused. He's disciplined. He's the real deal. Remember this name." Outside the ring, reporters scrambled to capture every word. Phones flashed, cameras clicked, but in the middle of all the chaos, a silent truth lingered. Nobody would forget this day. Not the fighters, not the audience, not even the gym staff, because it wasn't about who could throw the hardest punch or land the fastest kick. It was about respect, discipline, and understanding one's opponent, qualities that both Muhammad Ali and Bruce Lee had in abundance. The moral was clear. Greatness isn't only about dominating others. It's about knowing when to fight, when to hold back, and when to honor the strength of others. Muhammad Ali turned to the cameras one last time, pointing at Bruce Lee with a grin. "Y'all watch this," Ali said. "Sometimes the man you think is smaller, weaker, or quieter might just be the one who teaches you the biggest lesson of your life." Bruce Lee paused at the exit, glanced back, and nodded slightly, acknowledging the lesson had been shared and received. No words were needed beyond that nod. The gym emptied slowly, but the story didn't leave. It spread beyond those walls, carried by the whispers and headlines, by the awe and respect of everyone who had been present. And here's the final truth. Respect isn't reserved for the strongest, the loudest, or the most famous. True respect is earned in silence. It's felt, not demanded. And one day, the person you underestimate might be the one who changes your perspective forever. Call to action. Viral CTA. Do you believe humility is the real power? Type respect in the comments. Who do you think would win in a real fight? Comment Ali or Bruce Lee and tag a friend who needs to see this story. Remember, greatness isn't about proving yourself. It's about recognizing greatness in others, even if they're smaller, quieter, or unseen. And that, my friends, is the lesson Muhammad Ali learned from Bruce Lee.